So in the interest of time, we can start the session. And welcome everyone to the webinar, Women Moving the Decarbonization Industry, Insights from Developing Countries and Emerging Markets. Today we have the pleasure of having 5 outstanding professionals that will be sharing with us what are the projects that they are working on. And before we start, we will have the welcoming remarks from Dolph Gillen, who is the lead of the hydrogen program at ESMAP within the World Bank. So Dolph, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carolina. And I promise I'm the only male speaker on this topic today. First of all, welcome everyone for joining, and thank you very much to the panelists to this webinar, Women Moving the Decarbonization Industry, Insights from Developing Countries and Emerging Markets. So why do we highlight the role of women in this sector? So a first observation is that the notable gender gaps persist in the energy sector, which has been historically male-dominated. Women lag behind men in leadership and in technical jobs, and represent just 1/3 of the renewable energy workforce worldwide, according to IRENA, and it's similar in other parts of the energy transition. And this gender gap is driven by unequal access to education, limited access for women to technical skills and training opportunities, as well as unfair company policies, amongst other factors. So a critical element in closing the gender gap to fully include women in the technical, scientific, and business development of the renewable energy transition sector is needed. This offers a chance to reskill and upskill a varied and balanced transition workforce. Leveraging women's participation as change agents can encourage, influence, and speed up the energy transition. So we would like to understand through the discussion today better how this can benefit the energy transition, and what we can do to accelerate women's role in the energy transition. Because we also see that it's not all doom and gloom, quite the opposite. We observe a growing number of successful women in leading positions in the field of energy transition, and some of them you will hear today in this webinar. And we would like to understand better what makes them succeed and how can we strengthen this development further. And we know that creating equitable opportunities and policy inclusion are key to making women agents of change in global climate responses. And we also know that women must be enabled to participate in the energy transition through interdisciplinary networking, skill development, coaching, advocacy, and mentoring. I give you one personal note insight. So I studied chemical engineering in the Netherlands 30 years ago. And when I studied, there were very few women in that technical university in Eindhoven, and there were almost no female professors. And that has changed radically in recent years. So the same technical university now has a rule that they only hire female professors. And in fact, my daughter is studying there now. So the masculine ivory tower mentality has been replaced with a more inclusive practice, and that can be repeated elsewhere. So it's a fact that sustainable development will be more inclusive with women in the workforce. More opportunities for women in organizational hiring practices, prioritizing best female talent, regardless of race and color, can be credited with increasing the number of women working in the energy transition sector. And this development is much needed. We need a tremendous acceleration of the energy transition in the coming years. That means we need a lot more trained staff, and women have a key role to play in this rapidly growing industry. It's not just a moral and social necessity, it's also an economic necessity and a key pillar for meeting the sustainable development targets. So at the bank, this is an important aspect. In fact, for every project, we're asked how gender plays a role, and we also want to make sure that that is the case for decarbonization of industry and hydrogen. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dolph, for the introductory remarks. So just for the audience to understand how we will be running this session, first, we will hear from these outstanding professionals what are the projects that they are working on, to understand better how these projects are contributing to the decarbonization of industrial sectors, and also what is the link with hydrogen deployment. And then we will have a Q&A session. And I would like to introduce Janina Franco, who is the Senior Energy Specialist. And as Dolph also shared a personal story, I also share mine within this opportunity. And I need to say that Janina has been a mentor to me. She opened the space for me to work on energy and on hydrogen, and it is a pleasure for me to have Janina here sharing the experience from Chile. Janina, over to you.
Thank you, Carolina, and thank you, Dolph, for those inspiring words. No, can you hear me well? Yes? Yes, great. So I'm going to share a little bit of the presentation on the project, and then we can take it from there. I have one screen, so let me see how to share.
I can also share it, Janina, if you prefer.
Here we go. No, can you see it? Yes. And please jump in, because I'm not really seeing the people in the meeting. So we started working in Chile about 2020, August 2020, on green hydrogen. The Minister of Energy at the time was working hard to be able to launch its green hydrogen strategy. And we wanted to help them from the regulatory front through some TA. And at the time, there was a lot of uncertainty on where to stand, where to start the work. I must say that Chile is a very liberalized country, laissez-faire. So anything that you propose to the government needs to be framed within a market structure or market solution. As you know, subsidies is a word that it's not very light in the country, and any mention of anything that can resonate to some industrial policy creates some negative aspects. No. So in this, we also knew that Chile is really committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. They've updated their NDCs. The Ministry of Finance has issued green bonds. I mean, they're really committed to this, to becoming net zero economy. We know that most of the emissions are coming from the fossil fuel centers, and we know that there was a 21% of emission reductions that green hydrogen could help, especially in the industrial sectors in the country, given that it's a mining country. There's a lot of potential in those mining trucks, if they can convert to green hydrogen, and also creating new green value chains. But of course, the cost gap is really the key aspect. So we were trying to figure out how to do this within an approach that could fit into what the country, a market-driven approach in some ways. No, this is a summary of their strategy. It was launched in November 2020. the government has recently updated an action plan for the green hydrogen strategy. It's really about, it was a vision, I would say, a very ambitious vision. Their objective was to have 5 gigawatts of electrolysis capacity by 2025, and by 2030 be producing the cheapest green hydrogen globally, and by 2040 be among 3 top exporters, no? So when we came here, we were trying to support in the regulatory part to foster demand in the first wave of development. And just to give you a little idea, there were some, you know, the country was well positioned. It has very low cost renewables, that despite the transport cost of the country being so far away, they were competitive. It has a good reputation for business development, governance, and regulation. And it had already a lot of interest from private developers, from renewable energy projects that were looking into hydrogen. There was the mining. And so there was a pipeline of about 40 projects, of which 20 were really strong that you can see in this map. And there's basically 2 hubs that we're developing now, 2 strong hubs, one in solar and one in wind, one in the north with solar and one in wind in the south. So there's where we started talking to the different stakeholders, private sector, financial institutions, hydrogen associations, because we needed to find a solution that was not going to be grant-based, but was going to have some risk mitigation element that could convince commercial banks or financiers to come into these projects. No, we identified the main risks were, of course, the high cost of electrolyzers. Again, we're doing this in 2021. No, so first semester of 2021, the hype was there, but then I don't think there was much knowledge as there is now. So the high cost of electrolyzers could deter investors because they perhaps didn't want to invest now, but when the prices of electrolyzers will continue to go down, no? There was a lot of uncertainty of the technical performance, no track record. EPCs didn't want to provide the guarantees, or if they provided them, they were going to be much more costly. This has changed a bit now. There was also the novelty of the industry from the financiers, no? There was a high risk perception. There is still a high risk perception, and equity and debt investors really want higher returns to equity, or they just don't want to invest because it's too risky at this stage, and they rather wait until the technology has a better track record. No, of course, the high cost of transportation and infrastructure, logistics, no, that could affect the country because it's quite far away. And then the scarcity of specialized staff, and the reliance on international experts at the initial years, which would increase the cost of operation and maintenance. So what we thought about was establishing, a green hydrogen facility that could help accelerate development. And what we were thinking about was doing a risk-sharing mechanism that could help mobilize commercial finance and strengthen the enabling environment. And the purpose was really to lower the cost of production. How can we lower the cost of production? Trying to use this risk share mechanism and support the development of demand, economies of scale, and so that the industry could develop, no? And of course, build that technical capacity, support this skilled labor. And we were also working at the time through the TA on pushing some certification system, no? So what we thought about and what we presented to the government was really this facility that could, to the risk of the high cost of the electrolyzer, we could finance a percentage of the cost of the electrolyzer, 40%, and this would really lower the cost of production. No, I mean it was going to be a credit line, a concessional credit line given the bank funds, but this could really impact on the financing of the projects. No, to the risk of technical performance, we thought we could have a liquidity reserve account that would cover any technical unexpected issue that the firms would face probably the first 3 to 5 years, and make sure that the project could be able to overcome that liquidity that they could have, so that the people could still be hired, the company could still be producing, and of course to the financiers, and reducing the risk of a novelty of the industry. It was really to have a debt service reserve account that could have a 6-month cushion there for commercial lenders, so that they know that despite the issues or the hiccups that any green hydrogen firm would have, especially the first years, they would be able to be paying back the debt, And of course, we were going to finance technical assistance to support capacity building, to have specialized personnel in the country, and not rely so much on international experts. So, so this basically looked like this. It was an IBRD loan of 150 million, which is not much money. It's a drop in the bucket. We also got approval of a JEF non-grant instrument for 50 million, which will be using to channel the fund the reserve accounts. And this will be channeled through Corfo, which is a development agency that the government has. But we also brought together a whole set of MDBs. We with the Europeans, the European Investment Bank and KfW, we had been talking for a while. IAB also jumped in. CAF is now jumping in, and I think it's going to add some more money by next year. So basically, we all jumped in, and we're helping to finance this green hydrogen facility for 1 billion. So in a way, we're using very little public money from the World Bank. I mean, the government sees more, but really to leverage other funding to come in, and to use it in a way quite precise, to only deal with those risks that will bring the private investors in. We're financing with the funds 100% of the debt service reserve account and the liquidity reserve account. And sorry, here it was 25% of the cost of the electrolyzer, but we ended up financing 40% of the cost of the electrolyzer. And so this is what the facility looks like today. And this is what the World Bank money would be used for within the facility. Finally, a little bit of the results. We expect that the project will be able to finance 240 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity. We expect to lower the final price of the product and help with the concessional terms that the bank money has. Probably the creation of 7,000 new jobs overall. And then, but importantly, we really wanted to support that the project support women that were involved in the green hydrogen projects. We saw that many of the green hydrogen projects had women involved as part of the management or the financial part. So we decided as a gender indicator for the project, together with Corfo, we committed to really having green hydrogen projects that would have women in management positions within the company, and that was going to be our gender indicator, and we see that we could really help with this to reduce the gap, the gender gap in the energy sector that the country has. So with this, I'll pass it on back to you, Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janina. And it is very interesting to listen how the first investment project finance of the World Bank that is supporting green hydrogen has been structured. And with that, you have set the framework also to bring to the floor another pioneer at the World Bank, our colleague Survi Goyal. She's a senior energy specialist, and she's also the head leading the efforts of the first DPL, a lending operation at the World Bank on hydrogen for India. So thank you very much, Survi, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carolina, and thank you so much for bringing all of us together. It's so inspiring to see other colleagues also sharing similar experiences. It's always very inspiring. So let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, where am I? Okay, yes. I hope you can see the screen, right? Perfect. Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity. Let me just move on to the quick context setting that from where we are coming. So in India, when we have projected that how the industry is likely to, not industry, the economy is likely to move forward, we always have been noticing that industry is going to play a very, very critical role in driving the future growth of energy as well as of emissions. And there is where the focus of the country is increasingly getting into. And hence there has been this requirement or this need to look at the decarbonization tools, and one definitely which is promising is green hydrogen. However, as Janina mentioned in her previous slide, that there have been certain barriers to it. Of course, it is much expensive than the green hydrogen. Storage, transportation, still a missing piece of the puzzle. Because of new technology, commercial financing is still difficult to access. The demand for RE is competing whether it should be providing power to power, decarbonized power, or should it be used for production of green hydrogen. The safety standards, hydrogen being a volatile, odorless, colorless gas, and of course the skilled manpower who are to be there are still missing. So all these have led to a lot of constraints at the moment in the supply chain as well as the entire value chain of green hydrogen. Okay. So given this context and given the importance of green hydrogen in the entire scheme of the things, India issued its National Green Hydrogen Mission in January last year with a total outlay of $2.4 billion, with a specific target to create the demand on hydrogen side by enabling domestic demand, promoting exports, and substituting imports that we are heavily reliant on, specifically on ammonia. And for that, they have come up with certain policy actions, and I will walk through you. So the intervention that we have is a bit different as compared to what Janina mentioned. This green hydrogen mission specifically targets on 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen by 2030, providing or expecting to provide jobs of about 6 lakh, and then electrolyzer installations of 60 to 100 gigawatt, renewable energy of about 125 gigawatt additional to what they are already targeting. But, because this is such a nascent industry, so it was a struggle for the bank to see that how we should get into the segment, whether it should support a specific investment or whether it should be some other kind of opportunity that the bank should look at. And sorry, if people can go on mute, it would be helpful. So what kind of instrument should one be putting on the table which helps the country to grow? And there is where our instrument, which is development policy lending, comes into the picture. In this particular context, we are providing a $3 billion support, one of the largest development policy operation in the bank, with an objective that it accelerates the development of low carbon energy in India. And when we talk about it, it specifically focuses on advancing the policy actions of the government. So the previous slides, the context setting that I did was exactly going to, focus of this particular engagement. There were 3 pillars that we came up with. First, of course, was promoting green hydrogen, because as we saw in the first slide, industrial sector is going to be the most critical one to address on the emissions and the energy intensity. Associated with that is the scaling up of renewable energy, because that's the most critical one for green hydrogen. And it also constitutes about 60 to 70% of its cost. And of course, enhancing climate financing for low carbon energy investments. The overall objective of the engagement is to have about 75 gigawatts of RE enabled, and then 45,000 tons of green hydrogen incentivized. I won't go into the details, but there were several policy actions that were supposed to be taken by the government of India to allow them to access these funds. It was divided into 2 phases, each phase of 1.5 billion. Some of the notable interventions that this particular DPO supported and promoted in India was that there should be a green hydrogen mission. Mission would mean that the entire government bureaucracy is working together to achieve certain common objectives. An interministerial group was formed because the applications of green hydrogen is cross, industry. It includes transport sector, steel, fertilizers, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and multiple other ministries. So interministerial coordination was very, very important. The safety regulation, standard code, etc., were also promoted. The nodal agency, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, issued the standards codes for the consideration by the relevant ministries. India has a federal structure, and there are transmission charges when you transport power from one state to another. So those transportation of the power for the production of green hydrogen has been waived off. And then there were a lot of other interventions on renewable energy. For instance, obligations, mandates were introduced for renewable energy purchase by the DISCOMs. Bidding of 50 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity is targeted every year over the period of 5 years. Offshore wind strategy was also adopted, and on the low carbon emissions, for the climate finance, environment, social, and governance requirements were brought more to the center stage to avoid greenwashing, etc. National carbon market, its layout was put on the table. And the same was extended in the phase 2 with incentive schemes for specific off-taker industries were introduced. The green hydrogen production and electrolyzer manufacturing schemes have been introduced to incentivize it. The first bidding has already taken place and it had an overwhelming response. It also defined what green hydrogen should mean. Beyond that, we have been engaged at the multiple levels. I mentioned that energy is a concurrent space in India, and we have been engaged at multiple levels. I won't go into the details, but I think this slide is specifically important because it shows that there was a very good response to the first few tenders. This one shows the results of the electrolyzer tender under the incentive scheme launched by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and a lot of big players are already there on the list. Similarly, on the green hydrogen production, if you see that it has again seen a very good response. The most notable feature is that the first two bidders have bid for zero incentive, which means that many of the players are already inching towards making it sustainable and comparable with grey hydrogen. And this is, I think, my last slide, where I just wanted to emphasize upon that the scheme guidelines were also issued to promote demand, because demand is where the major bottleneck is coming up, to promote pilot projects in fertilizers, refineries, shipping, steel, and transport sector. So a lot of policy action has taken place as a future or a forward-looking approach that the bank has, that we are looking for certain specific investments to further demonstrate the technology to bring more commercial lenders on board, mitigate their perceptions about this technology. And this is what we are looking forward to. Just wanted to emphasize that the states, again, as it's a concurrent subject, in addition to the central level, many of the states have also started to come up with their own hydrogen policies. So with this, I'll stop sharing and pass it back to Carolina. Sorry, I went a little bit overboard on my slides and the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Survi. And it is fantastic that you are sharing the experience of India with us, because we can see how, with the project that you are leading, you're setting the framework to ramp up India's hydrogen economy, both from the supply and the demand side, which that is critical for emerging markets and developing countries to successfully participate in this industry. And with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Wei Zhou. She's the Director Assistant, the International Hydrogen Association. And Wei, welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. And good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon to all of you over there. Okay, it's 9 o'clock here in China now. And first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak at this webinar. I'm Wei from the International Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association, and my title is Head of Events and Membership. Okay, I'm going to show my screen, and please let me know if you can see it. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, very good. Okay, my topic today is projects in China and women's stats. First of all, I'll talk about mainly discussed women's stats in China, And I got a little bit research before this presentation. And in China, the labor force participation rate among female is 60.5%. And among males is 71% for 2023. And the data source is obviously World Bank. I checked your website to look for this data. And China ranked at 27 for MasterCard Index of Women Entrepreneurs for 2021 global ranking. So we'll see that in China, actually, from my own experience, for the International Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association, among the 11 full-time employees, my Secretary General, Ms. Zhu Wang, is female, and the Deputy Director of the Standard Research Department is female, and myself is female, and the director is female. So all the top to middle management team are females. So that's really good to see. So what we say, that's what we say in China. We say women holds half of the sky, half of the sky, or more than half of the sky in China. So before that, well, everybody talked about the projects they're working on. It's really interesting to see because we don't know that much about what's going on in the hydrogen industry in Chile or in India, and it's really good to show what you have been doing. So I'll briefly introduce China's energy system and China's hydrogen energy policies. So as you can see from the slide, China is embarking on a journey towards sustainable future. And the vision is very clear: to develop an integrated H2 energy system for the 30 to 60 decarbonization goal. So the electric and hydrogen-based energy system have the advantage of multi-source, high efficiency, and zero emissions, enabling energy security, climate action, and industrial transformation and upgrade. Everybody knows about that. I just want to talk about this. Okay, the next slide, we'll talk about China's hydrogen energy policy landscape. And you can see from the graph, in recent years, China has undergone a significant transformation. We recognize hydrogen energy as a very important pathway for carbon reduction. So it's backed by action. So China has issued multiple national level guidelines and policy directives since 2020. And if you and if you're interested, you can have a look at this. I'm not going to go into any more details. But one very important milestone for China's hydrogen energy development is the Hydrogen Energy Plan. And it's a new milestone in China's H2 industry because in March 2022, NDRC and NEA jointly released the medium and long-term plan for the development of hydrogen energy industry. In this plan, we specified all the strategies and the principles for the medium and long-term goals for China's hydrogen development. There's a lot of details in this plan, including, for example, such as deploying approximately 50,000 fuel cell vehicles and producing 0.1 to 0.2 million tons of renewable hydrogen per year, and etc. So a very detailed plan for our guidance. And in China, have you watched the 2022 Winter Olympics Games in Beijing? Okay, so China as one of the world's largest automotive markets, and we have taken ambitious steps to embrace hydrogen energy and FCV technology and foster its growth. So the Beijing Olympic Games is one of the world's largest hydrogen demonstration in the world. As you can see from my stats, that nearly 1,200 FCVs demonstrated at the Beijing Winter Olympics and the Paralympics, and realizing a total carbon reduction of 2,200 tons. And about 50% of the green hydrogen used at the Zhangjiakou site were generated from onshore wind P2G in the city's H2 demonstration base. So it's one of the largest hydrogen demonstrations, and the hydrogen refueling stations in Zhangjiakou are still operating so far, providing hydrogen refueling to the north of Beijing. And the other demonstration that I mentioned, or project in China that I want to mention, is the FCV demo city clusters. As you may know, that in China we have established 5 demo city clusters in China. One is the Beijing Tianjin in the north of China, and then we have the Yangtze River Delta with Shanghai as the center, and in the southern part of China we have Guangdong clusters. So total planned is for FCV demonstrations is 35,020 FCVs and 511 hydrogen refueling stations by the year of 2025. Okay, that's some projects I want to mention for China's hydrogen energy development. And I'm going to introduce IFCA a little bit. IFCA was officially established in July 2022, and I was employed by IFCA in June 2022 to help its establishment and the events and the membership management. So now we have 98 members, and we cover the entire supply chains. And IFCA is the first international organization to be approved by the Chinese State Council over a decade. I'm not going to go through this one. And I just want to mention another project I personally have gone through, which is the GF6 project. It's called the Shanghai Demonstration of Integrated Adoption of New Energy Vehicles in China. And as you may see from the pictures, the female play a very important role in this project, is accounting for 51.2% of the expert committee. You can see from picture, almost all the participants are women, which is again very good to see. And this project is a 3-year project, very influential project here in China. So if you want to see more details, you can contact me. And based on this success, we have now secured the GF8 project, which is the green hydrogen demonstration project in China. And we have started to carry out this project in China. We have chosen 3 cities in China to do the green hydrogen demonstrations, including Dalian, Shenyang, and Ningxia, Ningdong, which are very abundant. They have very abundant source of renewable energies. And then I want to extend my invitation to all of you to our next event, which is happening on the 4th to the 6th of June in Shanghai. We call it FCVC, is the International Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Vehicle Congress and Exhibition 2024. And it's one of the signature event of IFCA. This year is going to be the 8th event. And it's one of the largest event in China for for hydrogen energy and fuel cell vehicles. This year we're going to have more than 25,000 square meters of exhibition and more than 15,000 professional visitors. And we're going to have 1 plenary session and 7 summits. So you're very welcome to come to Shanghai and join us. Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Wei. It is also very interesting to learn what is the medium and long-term plan for hydrogen in China, and also all the hydrogen demonstration projects that you have for fuel cell vehicles. So thanks for those insights. And right now, we will pass on the floor to Margaret Muschler. She's the development director at CWP. And we really look forward to listen, Margaret, what you are doing in Africa, as hydrogen will also play an important role in the continent. So the floor is all yours, Margaret.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it is really fascinating to listen to the development in Chile, the development from the World Bank, as well as the development in China. And I'd like to share with you a little bit of an overview of what we're doing in our various projects for CWP. I'm also representing the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association as the vice chairperson of the association, and needless to say, I'm located in Namibia, and that's where I'm dialing in from today. In fact, today I'm dialing in from a small coastal town in Namibia. My kids have some holiday, and just an illustration of how we actually do manage to balance work and life in very, very weird ways. If I can continue, so CWP developed or started to with renewable projects some time ago. We already have 1.5 gigawatt grid connected projects in southeastern Europe and Australia, and over 4 gigawatt of grid connected projects under development. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we want to talk about the hydrogen projects, and currently we have under development around 190 gigawatts of project, which is more or less in 3 continents and over 6 projects. We have a team of 200 experts that specifically focus on the delivery of green hydrogen and accelerating green hydrogen projects with urgency and at scale. The specific project that I would like to talk about that we spend quite a lot of time on and is one of our flagship projects is the project in Mauritania. It's called the Amman project, the Amman Green Hydrogen Project. The reason why we're looking at Mauritania, apart from its extremely good resources, is that it's very well suited and close to the port, to the European markets, about 7 days at sea, and have access to a substantial, Mauritania have access to a substantial a reserve of good quality iron ore as well. We currently developed a project on an area of about 850,000 hectares. The planned installed capacity for that project would be around 50 gigawatt. And if we utilize all of that to green ammonia, you can look at the nameplate capacity of about 13 million tons per year. Electrolyzer capacity is deemed at about 50 gigawatts, and at that nameplate capacity, with the type of resource that we have there, we look at a 70% capacity factor, which is very close to baseload. The low-cost power generation in that region, supported by an extremely good resource that is negatively correlated. The implementation of cutting-edge technology would help us to develop and optimize the development cost in that area. Because of the scale of the project, we are looking at 3 different offtake vectors. One of them is green ammonia, the other one is green iron or green steel, and then a third one is liquid hydrogen. We've been extremely satisfied with the support that we get from the government of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, and we already have seen, and they would most probably be the first in Africa to do an enabling legislation, bespoke enabling legislation specific for hydrogen, and called the Hydrogen Code. And the expectation is that that code will still be in the second quarter of this year, will still be approved and implemented. Just a slide overview of how you build, I will say, how do you eat an elephant? and it's breaking it down into chunks. So our concept is a nodal concept. We believe in transporting molecules is more effective than transporting electrons. And I think it's a no-brainer for any engineer. You can't store electricity in a line where you can store green molecules in a pipeline. So that seems, hindsight is 2020, so that seems pretty obvious, but it is obviously take a while to derive at the solution. Our objective is to sort a node, a typical node or an optimal node, and then to roll out these nodes as modular standalone facilities connected to a single offtake or a free offtake vector through pipelines, green hydrogen pipelines. The downstream facilities, as well as the desalination facility, is expected in a centralized facility. And yes, we need to do desalination. The one downside of having a good wind and solar in a desert area is there's no other water. The project progress update. Firstly, we work as any of you will know, and in the project development. Project development is not just about solving for the technical solution. In fact, the technical solution normally isn't the easier one to solve. And I say this with a chuckle, because in the long value chain of green hydrogen, solving for a technical solution is not that easy either. But there's a lot of other work streams that needs to be synchronized, coordinated, and needs to flow into getting in this nascent industry, getting to a place where we can go to the market at scale with competitive prices. And for that, we have derived at a project execution framework. And as you can see from the slide on the right-hand side, a very high level overview of the work streams and the specific work activities that we need to bring at the same time to a successful conclusion in order to move this forward. And I'm always say it's like having 6 horses out in the field, all of them totally untamed, and you need to get them tamed and then in front of a carriage, and they need to pull that carriage in a disciplined manner. And it's working on all of these 6, and that's what's making the hydrogen projects at scale maybe slightly more complex, is that it goes beyond just to do the business as usual. Yet we have a good faith in that the industry will develop, and that the market will develop, and that it will develop in time to meet the targets that we've been set as on the globe for ourselves for climate change. Or the adaptation of climate change. On our MUN project, we have about 25 months of resource data, and we continue deploying wind masts, solar stations, and LiDARs. And obviously, in a desert, dust monitoring is extremely important. We also have started to install very modern technology to try and not only look at what is the resource, but also to help us to set up in artificial intelligence to help with the prediction once you are in operation of the resource. You must remember we are not grid connected, so each node that we set up needs to balance itself. The grid needs to balance itself, and therefore prediction of resource will be imperative in the success of the and the reduction of the levelized cost of hydrogen. Big part of this is environmental and social impact, and we start early with our ECIs to allow the findings of the ECIs to influence the technical solution, and specifically locations as well. Spreading out wind farms over 850,000 hectares means you can't sterilize that area. It's not an offshore development. There is a need for cohabitation and economic coexistence, and therefore we started very early with our ESI. As I indicated, the government engagement was up until now extremely satisfactory with the Mauritanian government. They set up an interministerial committee and an interministerial technical committee, and I noticed that one of the presenters earlier referenced that as well. I can definitely say this is very useful to if governments actually coordinate themselves into a multidisciplinary ministerial engagement forums. The H2 code is in final draft and expected to be ready by the end of this quarter. We are looking extensively into what is the market and market development, and one of the key areas that will drive, or key success factors that will drive the development and the timing of this project will be the readiness of the market. So we've embarked on feasibility studies to be able to bring either ammonia or HBI or liquid hydrogen to the market. And at some stage before concept select, end of next year, we will then, for the first stage, we will then select which of the offtake vectors will go forward. The technical infrastructure development, we've achieved quite a lot. We have a centralized development approach, benefiting from all the projects that we are working on globally, and make this work in specific customized project areas. We have conducted a number of studies. We have investigated that, done some site investigation with the local teams, and we basically use RTIS, divide the land up in 4x4 kilometer blocks, and make sure we understand what's happening on each of those blocks. We have had extensive look at the logistics and import infrastructure. What would be the best solutions for wind generation and solar PV, including, the question about tracker versus no tracker, or what type of trackers in the desert area. Very important and critical to the success of this project would obviously be hydrogen and storage. So we made a number of studies, or conducted a number of studies already to understand balancing of energy, as well as the type of electrolyzers, electrolyzer selection. Looking at, when you work at 30 gigawatts, you know that you will face the installation of this project, and as much as you want to be the first in the market, or need to be first in the market, you also recognize that through the process the technology will improve, and what's today considered as novel technology will become commercially ready. So we look at different types of electrolyzers and try and make sure that we keep an eye on the development there. Import and export options in every part of the country where you look at import, or all our projects, harbor and the existence of existing harbor infrastructure is lacking. So we spend a lot of time understanding this, and some of the studies that are critical and feeding into this, obviously your geotech and marine and bathymetry studies. I'd like to end. I think I've used more than my 5 minutes, so I'd like to end with an adapted quote, and it's about the first movers mantra, and it's the talent to spot opportunity early, the patience to realize it, and the discipline to avoid excessive risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Margaret. It's really insightful to listen what are the details about the project progress that you are having in Mauritania. And I believe it's of great importance to stress what you mentioned. This is the stage of feasibility and pre-feasibility is so comprehensive. It's an analysis that goes into so many levels that the management and the persons such as yourself that are developing these projects have really to have a wide view on how these projects will be developing. So thank you for your presentation. And now we go to our last keynote speech with Rebecca Oliveira. She's the Financial Vice President at the PESEM Complex in Brazil. And it is great to have you today here, Rebecca. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see it, the presentation? I'm not very good on this sharing.
Yes,
presentation
we can see
thing.
it. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with talking about you know, women in workforce and the transition of energy and everything. So let me see. Okay. So PESEM, it's not only a port, but it's a complex with a free zone in northeast of Brazil. Let's see here. So I've been in PESEM for 13 years now, working. I started as a manager, commercial manager. Then I became a commercial director. And for the past year and a half, I'm a CFO of a port of PESEM. So PESEM, it was a port until 2018. And then with the arrival of Port of Rotterdam, which is now partners with 30%, we became a complex industrial complex and a free zone as well. So being this company with not only a port, with a land on the behind in the free zone, we decided to invest more about trying to seek for larger companies and trying to be part of the energy transition. Because in Northeast Brazil, we have a lot of sun and wind, and finally it's going to pay off because we don't have a lot of rain. It was a very poor state here in PESEM. So we already have a very clean grid with 92% of hydro and wind and solar energy. So we're trying to get advantage on that one. So as I was speaking before, as per some studies, PESEM is a very cheap place to invest, not only of the infrastructure that we have, but also the energy, that we have a lot of energy at this moment with hydro, solar, and wind energy. I'm not even talking about offshore wind terminals, but I'm talking about onshore. We have a lot of land. As I said before, we are a very poor state, so we don't have oil, we don't have gold, we don't have a very fertile land in order to grow a lot of different type of agro bulk, but we have the land so we can install the wind powers and the solar panels, so we can provide green energy in a cheap way, so we can invite companies in the whole process of the transition of energy, especially with the green hydrogen. So we've been investing a lot in this new field with the green hydrogen, specific with trying to change the way we work with the grid, with the energy in the grid, reusable water and desalt water as well to produce the green hydrogen. So we already have a few companies that have pre-contract with us. So we're very advanced in the development of this transition to the green hydrogen at PESEM. As I told before, we have the infrastructure, we have the port, we're going to have the shared tanks, we're going to use reusable water, and we invest in a lot in the green energy to provide the green energy for the companies that are planning to be installed in the complex of PESEM in our free zone. So we have the state of Ceará, which is the partner of 70% of the Port of PESEM. We have Rotterdam, which is partner with 30%, which is helping us, dealing with us to help that 24%, 25% of all the green hydrogen and ammonia that's supposed to arrive in Port of Rotterdam, supposed to come from PESEM. So we've been investing a lot on that, especially with the shared storage of the ammonia, the pipelines, the shared water, the shared energy, in order to increase the cost, increase capex for the companies, and so PESEM can be a very good place and safe place to invest. So this is the PESEM complex. We already insuring $135 million dollars for the investments for the projects that we have, most of them with the World Bank that's been such a good friend with us and helping us not only with the money, but all the trying to make us organize ourselves, because until years ago, we didn't have the ESG or relationship with the communities. And I heard you talking about women. I'm the only woman in as a director or any type of position in the complex at this moment for the port, which is very sad, but at least I was the first one, and I'm trying to open the path for other women that are coming. We have a few women that are managers, but unfortunately no women directors or any other senior, but I hope that with my voice, I can be able to open the doors for other women as well. But the good thing is I've been having a lot of opportunities to talk, to speak. So people are actually seeing us at PASEM, and not only seeing us, but seeing that we have women in a position that can talk about how they feel as a woman in the market. I even told Sylvia that I was going to be a little bit late because I was at school with my son. I have a 5-year-old, which was the Mother's Day here in Brazil from school. So I had to go there, and I came home to talk to you guys and share the experience about the transition of the energy in my state, the position that with the Port of Pacén I'm doing the whole transition, but not only that, talking about as a woman in the market field, especially if you're from Brazil, and even more, especially if you're from Northeast Brazil, which is even harder to be a woman in Northeast Brazil than is in just South America in general. And I couldn't miss this opportunity to talk a little bit and to sell a little bit about PASEM and talk a little bit how I can try to make more women engage in the process. And I feel that me as a woman in this process, helping the relationship with the people around, because I feel that it's not worth it that if you've been trying to bring so much business to the state, to bring the transition, and only a few again will grow with that. I feel that we cannot let green hydrogen or ammonia to become a commodity, become a gold or maybe a soil like we have here in Brazil, but also to add value to the people around us. So we have the traditional fishermen by the Port of Pacén. We have the indigenous, 2 specific communities of indigenous around Pacén. And we're trying to have a good relationship with them and add value to the business that they've been doing. We've been talking with them very close now, especially with after classes for their children. Some of them still didn't know how to read or write. So we have classes at the night for the grown. We have trying to make them feel part not only of the transition of energy, but of the growth of the state that's in this new era. The opportunity that the state of Ceará, being such a poor state in a poor area, which is Northeast Brazil, to finally see people glow and be proud of be part of something. So this is something that I'm very strong. I have the feelings very strong about that. So this is PASEM. I hope if you have more questions, you let me know. I'm very happy to sell us and show what we've been doing. It's very interesting. We are very new. We're only 22 years old, but we've been doing so much, especially for the growth of the state, not only our state, but the states close to us, Rio Grande do Norte and Piauí, that use our port as a way to import and export goods, so to increase their business in their poor states. So thank you for the opportunity again, Sylvia, and Frank, for the opportunity to everyone. So this is a little bit of our report. If you have any questions, I know it was over 5 minutes, but I'm here to talk if it's needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And it's very interesting to see how the development of the port is happening. But also, it's great to listen that this is not only a topic related to infrastructure, but also about relationship with stakeholders, with the local communities, and how the project can add value to the local community. So with that, we would go to the next part of this webinar, which is some questions that we will be answering. And those will be more related on what are the personal experience of our panelists supporting industrial decarbonization. So I would like to start with Janina. And Janina, so if you could please share with us and the audience specifically what is the role of female leadership in energy and in the hydrogen sector today, and how are you making the difference in bringing this sector forward, the green hydrogen sector forward?
Thank you, Carolina. And it was fascinating to hear all the experiences from the colleagues, the panelists. No, it was really good to learn from what they're doing in China and the Amman project and the PASEM. And of course, Surbi, we've already spoken. But I think one of the key things here is that it really takes a village no? And I think in that sense, the teamwork that we do is really important, and in that angle, the knowledge sharing that takes place is very important, and I think that's kind of perhaps, I don't want to put a gender focus, but that's really important. I mean, this is a new technology. We're using new financial products. So in a way, everything was new, and we came to it with a lot of humbleness, no, and a lot of trying to look for these experts, trying to look to these financial experts, technical experts, and then once we understood many things, we were also very open in sharing the information with other colleagues. I mean, we spoke a couple of times with Surbi, with Nadia as well, and of course Dolph has been fantastic in sharing his experience as well and his knowledge. So that generosity, I think, is very important in trying to build or trying to build these type of projects that were so innovative at the time, no? I think also coming with really good experts is critical. For us, I mean, in the specific case of Chile, it was a bit of a, we underwent a government transition, no change of government from a right government to a left government. So there was a lot of mistrust that we had to overcome, and of course, there was a lot of competition. You saw the various development banks, and at the time we weren't sure who was going to come in, who not. Today we know that we need each other's, and we need to build partnership. At the moment, it was a bit tense. So, and also I think besides building the trust and everything, it's really trying to identify who the decision maker is, or how to influence, who will influence that decision making process. At one point in time in the project, we were during this transition of governments, we weren't sure which, if the project was going to go through or not. There were many rumors that only one was going to be selected, only one of the MDBs and not the other one. So I mean, we had to really manage that situation and change the perception perhaps that the client had about the World Bank, and to really show that we're there to help, that we're there to support, that this is about what the client wants and how we really can help them and learn and all learn, by doing. I think that is kind of a lesson learned from the experience. And of course, I really think that you have to be very perseverant, and that, I mean, these projects are all difficult, no matter in which country. They're it's not only the renewable energy side, it's the production of hydrogen and the chemical plant side, depending on, and then it's also the end product, the end use, what it's going to be, and the off-taker. So these are really complex and multi-sector projects, and again, it really takes that village to do them, and it takes perseverance and trying. Many times we in our specific case, because there were so many different MDBs, we were leading a little bit from behind until we were able to build the trust. And today I would say we're really leading up front, and we've built that trust with the client in moving this forward. That's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Janina. And you mentioned two things that are critical from what we have seen, perseverance and collaboration. So also taking that into consideration, I would like to go back to Surbi and ask her, in your experience, what specific challenges do you realize that women face in advocating for implementing this decarbonization initiative in industrial sectors? And how can these challenges be addressed effectively?
Thank you so much, Carolina. And I must say that this was quite a good lineup of these speakers. I really learned a lot. So nice to be in touch with all of you. So in terms of the question that you've asked, I think in terms of the challenges that the women face, we all would have faced it at some point in time. First of all, I come from the power sector, right? Power being such a technical subject that we seldom see any women out there. At least when I began my career 18 years ago, it was that the case. Now I see more and more women getting incorporated in the segment. And the similar story is likely to be turned up for green hydrogen. So a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings, wherever we are going, we see that the meetings are generally male dominated and there are only very few females generally in the room. And as Dolph was mentioning that, you know, in the bank, we have started to focus and emphasize more on how we can bring more gender sensitive, issues at the center stage and use our financing to address those issues. I think one important thing is that how we can improve the inflow of these women engineers into the sector. So education and improving the skill set, incentivizing the women students to adopt and take forward and continue in the engineering space become very important. At the moment, in many of the utilities we see, women are predominantly in finance or HR sector because of multiple reasons. Historically, women are asked to be at home, do the chores at home, but gradually over the generations, now that trend is changing. Now the mindset is becoming more open. So I think that is one of the foremost challenge. One specific challenge that always I faced was that I was, looked through in many of the meetings. People just disregarded my presence in the meeting. But over the time, when you bring substance to the table, when you actually talk business to them, the people start to look at you and start talking to you. I think the women in this particular webinar are all leaders. They are doing certain, cutting edge work in their own spaces. So there are now the female leaders to whom, the students can look up to. And I think it's very important that we, in our own capacities, reach out to the market, give them more confidence and to bring them more to the center stage that, yes, you can do it. There are always certain, solutions to every problem that you face. And the last point which I would like to mention is that the conducive environment in your organizations play a very critical role. Because if you have, an environment which promotes that, yes, after childbirth, you are welcome. After your any, turn of the events in the life, you are welcome. You are allowed some flexibility. You are understood. And a confidence and a trust is instilled in you by your management. It changes things. It brings more confidence into you and you're more dedicated to work than what you were doing before. So I would suggest that whichever utilities are there or companies are connected, we really need to bring that safe space for the women to come forward with the best of their capabilities. And I wouldn't say that it's not applicable to the men, it is, but to the lesser extent as compared to the women. We have a network of V-Power where we, in the bank, where we are supporting women engineers in the power sector. Probably something similar could be thought about for the hydrogen sector at some point in time, or at industrial decarbonization level to make it broader, which will bring together all these experiences, initiatives, incentives to be given to the organizations to promote such kind of culture. So those were my few insights, Carolina.
Thank you very much, Survi. And it is, very interesting to listen that through education, but specifically engineering. And me, I'm saying this because I'm a lawyer. So there are many female lawyers. I'm certain that there are not that many female engineers. And I would say that also another key takeaway that you mentioned is to dare to bring ourselves to the spotlight, because sometimes we have great ideas, but we are not necessarily educated to say, okay, I have this idea and then I will show it to the rest of the world. So that is also a great advice, Survi, and definitely taking notes on the Women in Hydrogen or Industrial Decarbonization Network, as that is an initiative that we could definitely support from the World Bank. And I would like to then pass on to So And seeing how China is, I love what you said of in China, 50% of the sky is held by women. So I would like to ask you, why are so many women leading this industrial energy transformation in China, and what is your perspective, Wei?
Oh, I think this question can be answered in two aspects, just as Mr. Goyer and Ms. Goyer and Janeria just talked about. They were talking about the characteristics of excuse me, characteristics of women. There's a saying that men are from the Mars, women are from the Venus. That means that we're a lot different from men. So I think there's two characteristics that lies in women that help us to be leading the energy transformation. The first one would be we are very persistent. We try to achieve overcome the obstacles in our projects and achieve what we want to achieve. This persistency is very important for driving long-term change. And the second one would be, we're very thoughtful. For example, my husband is he's very careless. So I'm the director in my family who is managing the family business, because if you let him, for example, if you let him plan a holiday, the outcome would be like we'll probably never go for that holiday. So this thoughtfulness, and women are good at understanding the needs and the perspectives of diverse stakeholders, and this thoughtfulness fosters stronger relationship and collaboration, and leading to more effective decision making and implementation. And the second aspect would be the social environment has greatly improved for women. And for example, many organizations are very actively promoting diversity and including within their workforce. And the access to education and training programs has become more equal for women, and so that as a woman we can get more qualification and skills that traditionally dominated by the males. I personally got my master's degree in the United Kingdom, and I went on to live in the United Kingdom for 14 years. And the third one, I think, would be the government policy support and initiative support, aiming at promoting gender equality and women's power, like what the webinar you organize for women. And so we're promoting gender equality and empowerment. Overall, I think the social attitudes towards women's roles, towards gender roles, and women's participation in the workforce are evolving. So it's very acceptable. For example, my husband will support me to go out to work, and then it's supported, no longer considered as your housewife. Your kind of sky is inside the home. That's no longer the case. So overall, the increasing presence of women in leadership positions within the hydrogen industry or the energy industry reflects a broader social trends towards gender equality, and as well as the recognition for our contribution towards the energy industry and even beyond towards the world. So that's all for my answer.
Thank you very much, Wei. And I believe that what you mentioned on the recognition, it's extremely relevant that we give it among us, among peers, and also the recognition from men and society that the work that we are doing is so important that without it, the industrial decarbonization, the targets of renewable energy wouldn't be achieved. So I would like then to ask a follow-up question to Margaret. And I was wondering if you could share with us some examples of successful strategies or initiatives that were led by women in developing countries, and that have had significantly contributed to decarbonization and sustainability efforts.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for including me in this discussion. I really just enjoyed talking to a lot of women today. I think we all most of the time we talk to a lot of men. I was in Mauritania 2 weeks ago, and I had the privilege to be a keynote speaker on a conference specifically earmarked to bring SME development, female SME development, to the fore and support us and in all aspects. And it was so wonderful to stand in front of an audience where there are 400-500 people in the audience, and where 80% of them are women. Not only was it more colorful, but I can promise you the chatter afterwards was more interesting. So, but nevertheless, the characteristics that I'd like to display in the 2 cases that I would like to mention in answering your question is not unique to women, but I think it's women. For women, it's more intuitive and it comes easier. The one case is SME development. To really develop the green hydrogen sphere, and in Africa and in any other country, but specifically in Africa, we need to develop an ecosystem that support the green hydrogen industry. If we don't develop that ecosystem, we can't develop the industry. And a big part of that is developing the small medium enterprise market. There are numerous opportunities for eroding job or unemployment, resetting poverty levels by utilizing small medium enterprises, and make sure that the growth, that the industrial growth that is brought by the investment, the foreign direct investment, is sustainable in the countries that we work in. And for that, we need women. And I have specific in Namibia specifically, the one SME developer that comes to mind is, and I ask myself, why are they successful? And they're just a bunch of women. They do have men in the team, but the big part of the team is made up of women. As firstly, they very in-depth understanding of the SME market because they've been there themselves. They understand the balancing, they understand the different criteria, they understand the taxation and the limitation. They understand time management because from the beginning they had to do it themselves. Balancing a life of business and family life teach you very hands-on skill on time management. The empathy for the SME market, the empathy for a 1 or a 2 or a 3 person's business to trying to grow and at the same time bring food on the table. As you've earlier said, perseverance. We've seen so many SMEs. It's like a sawtooth. They increase the abilities and then there's a fall, an increase. And SME development is not just straight up. It's really like a sawtooth, and it's really the ability to bring SMEs out of that fall that brings them to the next level of growth. It's not a continuous growth that provides for successful SMEs. And then the ability of women to actually mentor and meaningful do economic development through being through the empathy that they bring to the table. The second case I'd like to illustrate is a group of women, and specific one lady that comes to mind that's leading in the development, the technical development space, and specifically developing currently a novel green hydrogen offtake vectors. And what is specific here is in this, as I said, none of these projects are fully developed. All aspects of these projects are in different stages of growth or development, and all aspects, whether it's a finance, the legal side, the technical side, all of this needs to scale up substantially if we need to meet the targets. We can't do this one pilot at a time. You really need to move to scale. And the ability of women to do complex problem solving and look at more than one problem, and realizing that we need to be nimble, flexible, and adaptable. It's not like having a recipe. It's not like, here's the solution, this is the steps, now we go from FEL A, FEL 2A, FEL 2B, and then feed. And it's an easy, it's just forward. It's backwards and forwards, sometimes sideways and forwards. And the ability that women do bring to adapt in that environment, I find is extremely helpful in the area that I'm working on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And it is very interesting for me to listen, and I guess for the audience, on, because we see these hydrogen projects as extremely large ones, but also the implications that they will have with SME development and female leading SMEs is also an aspect that could help empower and increase the participation of women in the industry. So we would like to finalize the session with a question for our colleague Rebecca. And the question for you, Rebecca, is if you could share with the audience, what is your story of as a female professional in Brazil, and how did you reach your current role? As you mentioned before, you're the only one that has a high-level position at the complex.
Thank you. I've been working in logistics for almost 24 years. I started in steamship line. It's a very girly position with a typing bill of ladings, which doesn't even exist as profession anymore. Then I started doing multimodal and booking for vessels and anything like this. And then when I tried to do operations of vessels, which is you go inside a vessel and you talk to the captain of the vessel and make sure everything, I was not allowed to work on weekends, because during the weekends, they didn't have the office people there. So they were very scared that something would happen to me. So I always, yeah, that's true. And then I couldn't go onto vessels during the night. I couldn't do things like that, but maybe because I talk too loud and I'm kind of tall. And but the thing is, men, when they talk loud, they're powerful. Women, when they talk loud, they're crazy. So I was a crazy lady from the dock. No problem with that. I don't care. My husband is tired of listening to people says like, "Oh, you're married to Rebecca. I'm sorry," things like that. But people think that sometimes, to nowadays, because I'm getting older and 24 years later, I'm tired to knock on the table or talk louder, because I feel that now it just doesn't matter anymore. If I'm supposed to do things, I'm gonna do it. And so for steamship line, I went to the fruit growers who export fruit. So I used to go to ports in different parts of the world, like Rotterdam, Antwerp, Ashdod. I went to Agadir in Morocco, so receiving fresh fruit to make sure they arrived in good condition for reefer containers. Then I arrived at PSM again. I was starting with as a manager, then I became a director, and now I'm a CFO. And when I became CFO, I thought I was done with listening to things. But when I became a CFO, it's like, okay, she's doing things, it's good, but now it's a competition, and it's a kind of like went back 10 years in my history. And it's always like that. It's like, though they're good, we're gonna give them the opportunity, but as far as they go up here, if you go a little bit further, it's like you go back since your beginning of your career. You have to prove yourself all over again. And it was very frustrating in the beginning, but after 1 year in this position, I've just, again, started don't care anymore, and I start joking. And now I joke. And now, every time I have opportunities, like, I don't know how you guys run the world so many years, because it's blown my mind how you guys can only do one thing at once. And they're always making jokes that I go like floor to floor, and I ask people how they're doing, how their parents are doing, because I know what's going on with them. And it's like, oh, you know about everything. Again, you're a gossiper. You're not a leader, right? It's like, wow, it's so easy for you to go and know the people they work with. I rather have people liking me, respecting me, than be afraid of me. So this is what I've been doing for 24 years in logistics. So many years that I couldn't do what I wanted to do because I was a woman. It was dangerous, which it is. In fact, it is dangerous. I mean, we still have that against us. Where are you going? and you start don't be invited for some dinners because some dinners go to after things after that. So you get behind. And when people say that we have the same opportunities, no, we don't. That doesn't exist. We can pretend that we have because we're here, we go into upper positions, but things are being talking outside in dinners, in parties, whatever, that we're not invited. So we're always going to be behind. Or you're always going to listen like, oh, you're going to Rotterdam again, who you're leaving your son with. My husband will never listen to that. Never, never. But I listen to that every single time that I have to travel for work. So we're never going to be equal, unfortunately, in that way, because always we're going to be talking too loud. We're the crazy. We're not going to be able to go to different parties or things, or we're going to be part of this club. What we can do is what we've been doing, walking up step by step, patiently, as we've been doing for 8,000 years. And one day we're going to get in a room and we're going to have more women than men. And what I'm trying to do as a woman and being as a mother of a son, every time he comes to me and say, like his little friend, girlfriend tells him to do, I always tell him, good, because you have to learn in the future always to listen to women. And it's better to you to start now as a 5-year-old that who's going to run the world is going to be women. It's good for you to learn now from your kindergarten for your future. So I have a job as well, not only as a professional, but as a mother of a boy that's going to become a man. It's going to become a businessman. It's going to become a husband, a father, a father-in-law. I don't want him to mistreat or make his son say like, oh no, that's not a type of girl they wanted to marry. We still have to listen things like that. It's not only about being a professional. It's things like that still held us back. It's not our minds. It's people's mind that's still holding us back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for sharing your story with the audience today. And with that, I'm very grateful for your time, for the effort of being here, despite being the Mother's Day or being in vacations, Margaret, or being, I do not know, midnight in China and missing a family dinner served in India. And I give the floor back to Dolph for some closing remarks. And some questions are in the chat, so we will copy them and send them to the speakers so as we couldn't address them during this session.
Thank you all very much. I think this was a very fascinating and very important discussion. So I think we agree women have to play a key role in this energy transition. And I think your cases show that women can play a key role in this energy transition, but it's not easy. Affirmative action is needed to get to a level playing field and to make sure that women can play the role they should play. And it has, let's say, it has maybe call it cultural aspects, but it also has aspects of how do you organize things to make it really happen. So we will continue to push on this topic. As I said, it's on the agenda. It's high on the agenda of the bank, and we heard now especially examples on the hydrogen side today. Of course, there is our own interest, so we'll also make sure that it's on the agenda there. And we'll also do an effort to make this discussion, the results of this discussion, more widely available to a broader audience. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.